What's up, guys? Welcome back to my vlog. This is episode 7. This being recorded in real time is actually not from the episode you're about to watch. It is WPT week. It is mid-December. I'm at the Aria right now, but what you're about to watch is the last session from my prior trip here in the Aria, my biggest ever win in Vegas. Very, very excited. It was a short session. Only played about 2.5 hours. Didn't actually have that many hands, but the hands that made the cut are some pretty big hands, especially the last two. So if you don't watch anything else except for the last two hands, it'll be worth your time. So please like, subscribe, share with your friends so I can keep making these, so I can make midweek trips from New Jersey out to Vegas to play for 3 days, shoot some footage, and get back by the weekend. So without any further ado, let's get into the hands.
We've bought in for $300 for this session, that's the max. In our first hand, we look down at Queen 10 off in the hijack. There are a couple limpers to me and I open to $15. The button raises to 30. While we're not very strong here and would certainly fold to a larger 3-bet, a min raise in position doesn't mean a whole lot to me here. So it folds around to me and I make the call. We're heads up to a flop of 9-7-6, 2 diamonds. I check and the button c-bets to 25. This board certainly looks like it would hit my range harder than my opponent's, and much harder than what he's representing here. Plus, I was the initial raiser. So I decided to apply some pressure and bump it up to $60. This should look like a set, 2 pair, or at worst a combo draw trying to build a pot. Having the 10 is also a solid blocker to our opponent having a straight already. However, he is not buying our story and pretty quickly raises it up to $140. Alright, time to bail out of this one. I make the fold pretty quickly here, but I'll be keeping an eye on this guy to see if he pulls any more moves like this down the line. In our next adventure, we look down at pocket 5s, once again in the hijack. I like to speculate with small pocket pairs and often lead out if there hasn't been an open already. So I open it to 15 and get called by the button, small blind, and middle position. The flop rewards our speculation when it comes out ace 7-5, 2 clubs. We have bottom set multi-way on an ace high board, also known as the dream. It checks to me and I decide to play this one a little bit sneaky and check back, hoping the button will bail us out. The button isn't the hero we deserve, but he's the one we need right now, as he comes to the rescue and bets out for 20. Small blind and middle position both call, and there's absolutely no way we are seeing a turn for this cheap. I bump it up to 75. The button now thinks for a bit, and puts in the fold. Maybe he's not the hero we need after all. But the small blind has hero potential and makes the call. Middle position folds, and we are heads up to a turn. The turn is a very safe card, the 3 of spades. Small blind checks. We are not letting up on the gas here. If he has an ace, this card should change absolutely nothing. I bet out 100, but unfortunately he pretty quickly folds. Still, a decent pot for pocket 5s. In our next hand, I have the sort of hand that all true degenerates love. Suited connectors. We look down at 9-10 suited on the button. It limps around to me and I decide to open things up with a raise to $12. The small blind calls, and the big blind, who is the same villain from our earlier Queen 10 off bluff attempt, 3 bets up 30. It folds around to me and I'm certainly getting in there. I make the call, and the small blind comes along as well. We're 3 ways to a flop of 10-8-4, rainbow. When the small blind checks, I expect the big blind to c-bet almost all the time here, and I'll call anything reasonable with top pair and all the backdoor draws. He thinks for a bit, but surprisingly checks. Huh, that's a little weird. When he 3-bets me out of position and checks on this board, I put him on 2 overs, or possibly a draw. I'm not letting any draws or overs see free cards. We have top pair and some backdoor draws ourselves. Plus, we still have to recover some of those chips of mine that he's keeping warm from earlier. So I bet out $40. Small blind gets out of the way, and big blind makes the call. The turn brings a beauty with the 9 of clubs. Small blind checks again, and now I'm hoping he's slow playing an overpair like jacks, or as a hand such as ace 10, king 10, queen 10, just hopefully not jack 10. I make it $60 to go. I think this is a good sizing to keep in all his draws, any overpairs, or any 10x hand. Small blind thinks for a bit, and makes the call. Oh, the river is absolutely brutal when it comes to 4 of diamonds. Now all the hands we were beating, we are losing to, unless he just bricked out on a draw. Small blind checks again, and there's really nothing to do here but check back in this spot. I don't want to put any more money into this hand. Luckily for us, he has exactly the sort of hand that I initially thought, with ace-jack suited. The 9 on the turn was the perfect card as it made him open-ended and allowed us to get one more street of value. We dodged quite a bullet on that one with one of the worst possible river cards to come out. Happy to rake in this pot. Alright, strap yourselves in for the last 2 hands of this one. We look down at ace queen suited in middle position. I open to 15, the cutoff calls, and the small blind min raises to 30. A min raise playing out a position like this seems awfully suspect. I'm certainly not going anywhere, but I don't quite believe him either. I consider 4-betting, but there's still a cutoff left to act, and this is a hand I'd really like to see a flop with. So I just make the call. The cutoff comes along as well. We are 3 ways to a board of ace 9-3, 2 clubs. Small blind c-bets $40. Once again, I'm not going anywhere, but my spidey senses are tingling. I make the call, and the cutoff gets out of the way. The turn is a great card for me, the 5 of diamonds. Small blind, however, does not agree that this is a good card for me, and isn't letting up. He continues again, this time for $80. I think about this spot for quite a while. I check my opponent's stack, and he has about 320 or so left behind. I'd love to raise here, but something about the way my opponent is betting worries me. If he had an ace with a decent kicker, or like a medium pocket pair such as jacks or tens, I think he would check this turn after I call the flop. The only reason I see him continuing with the aggression here is if he either has a monster or pure air. In either scenario, a raise makes no sense, as we'll fold out his bluffs or just get shoved on, and then we'll have to call off knowing we're way behind, praying to the poker gods to bring a diamond on the river. Our hand has a ton of value here, so I like to play some pot control and just make the call. The river is a total blank, the 7 of spades. Now our opponent thinks for a little bit, and for the first time this hand genuinely looks like he's deciding on what to do. What he decides on is to shove all in for about $320. This card really changes nothing. I don't believe for a second that this guy has 2-4 or 4-6. He's representing a strong ace or possibly a set, but I just don't believe him the way he's played this hand. I'm at the absolute top of my range, I have one of the best bluff catchers I'll ever have here, and I just don't believe that this guy min-raised us pre-flop, out of position, with a pocket pair like 3s, 5s, or 7. Aces would have gone with a bigger sizing pre-flop, pocket 9s or ace-king are really the only 2 hands I can think of that we're behind and would play the hand this way. But we have an ace, which makes ace-king less likely, and I really just can't see any possible hands here that we're losing to besides 9s and ace-king. So, I take a deep breath, clench my stomach, remember somewhere deep inside my currently shattered heart there is bravery, and...
Call. I call. Do you have ace king?
Yeah. Ace queen. Good hand.
Thanks.
I have to give credit for him committing to the full 3-barrel bluff here. It's really hard to fire that last bullet, but he went for it. Luckily, the line didn't make too much sense to me, and with such a narrow range of hands that we lose to, I was able to make the right call and rake in a big one here. Really curious what you guys would have done on that river. Obviously, in retrospect, we know he was bluffing, but it's a spot where it's very close. I could totally see making the fold there. That's a reasonable thing to do, but I just did not believe his line, and ultimately, we were right. For the last hand of this episode, we are not quite ready to get off this roller coaster ride yet, so do not loosen those seatbelts. I look down at pocket 8s on the button. It limps around to me, and I make it 15 to go. Under the gun, middle position, and the cutoff, all call. Now this hand is unique, as I have a very specific read on each of the 3 villains in it. Under the gun is a very tight player, wearing sunglasses, and playing poker on his iPad at the same time as our game. He only looks up occasionally to play a hand here or there, but is paying more attention to the virtual felt than physical one. Middle position is the player from our previous hand. He's rebought and won a bit since our last encounter, but his playstyle has remained the same. Pretty loosey-goosey. Last but not least, the cutoff is my buddy Brian, who's a very good player, but known sicko, and could be in there with just about anything. Flop comes out, King 9-8, 2 diamonds. Once again, we have bottom set in a multi-way pot, but this board is a little more connected than the 5's hand. It checks to me, and I'm feeling a little spicy after that big win. We're all pretty deep for a 1-3 game, and I decide to continue for a very small sizing here of $15, hoping maybe someone is trapping with a king and will check raise us. All three players make the call. Spice officially denied. The turn is the 7 of clubs. Jack 10 and 5-6 get there, but otherwise this is a pretty safe card. It checks to me, and this time I go a little bit bigger and bet out $50. This is where things get wild. Under the gun now check raises to 200. With his image, all I can think is that I ran face first into Jack 10, and I'm honestly just contemplating a fold here. Gotta be honest, this really sucks. But then middle position makes the call. What is happening here? Were they both trapping me? Do they both have Jack 10? Have I been double trapped? What is middle position check calling a 3-bet with here, but not shoving all in with only about 200 left behind? Under the gun and I are both deeper. He has a similar stack to mine. Now we are in quite a spot. If middle position jammed, I can pretty easily get away, but the check call 3-bet has thrown me for an absolute loop, and I'm getting a great price to call here, almost 4-1. There is no way we're up against kings or 9s the way this hand has been played. Maybe 7s? Alright, so here's the what would you do scenario for this one, guys. Would you A, fold? This is way too confusing and we're likely behind at least one of these players. B, call. Even if we're behind, we're getting 4-1, so let's see a river. Or C, jam. We know at least one of the villains is a maniac, and there's still some chance we're ahead. Lock in your answers now. In real time, I have no idea what to think, very confused, but I have a set, I'm getting a great price, so I make the call. The river is the Queen of Clubs. Now this card at first seems a little bit scary, but upon further review it changes absolutely nothing as Jack 10 is still the nuts. Small Blind has now abandoned the virtual felt and given his full attention to our game. How kind of him. He looks as confused as I am though, and checks. Middle position doesn't think too long before also checking. What is this hand? I am certainly not putting any more money to this pot, but I am so confused as to what's happening here, I check as well. No one seems to want to turn over their hand, and I'm certainly not going to be the first one to do so. Eventually, Small Blind turns over 7-9 of diamonds for 2 pair and the missed flush draw. Middle position turns over pocket 10s, and somehow we have the winner here with our set of 8s. We had to dodge about half the deck on the river, but managed to do so and rake in another huge pot. This has got to be one of the weirdest hands I've ever played. The check raise by Under the Gun makes a lot of sense given his exact holding. The flat call from middle position was pretty wild in my opinion, but I guess he figured he has blockers to the nuts? He's also a bit of a wild guy. I'm still not sure if calling was the right move in my position, but we did it and it worked out this time. This was a very fast but furious session, and this last hand completes my biggest win yet in Vegas.
That's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Still at the Aria, waiting to try to get a seat. That session that you just saw was fantastic. Honestly, after the first failed bluff attempt, which didn't go too well, everything else just went perfectly. Hit the set of 5s. That ace-queen hand was wild. We really just had a bluff catcher there, but I did not believe him, and luckily for us, he decided to punt off his entire stack. Just caught him with his pants down there, didn't believe him, and accepted that donation. The pocket 8s hand, I've never played a hand quite like that. I had no idea what to think. I cannot believe that neither one of them had the straight in that situation. Honestly, when I was up on the river, there was no chance I was gonna put more money into that pot. I really assumed that I may have lost if I didn't vote up on the river, but I was getting such a good price. There was no way I wanted to fold a set in that situation. However, that same guy that punted off to us with the ace-queen hand, he really just wanted to get in there and was all about that action. So glad to be in some hands with some guys like that. Numbers here, fantastic session. In for 300, out for about 1,500 for a $1,200 profit. So that was the best session we had so far in Vegas. If I can ever get a seat tonight, hopefully I'll top it and you guys will see that soon. Thanks again for watching. Please keep coming back for more. Best of luck to all you guys out there, and until next time.